Welcome to the Wardrobe of Woe. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over the mark system for the Slave to Darkness, as well as the Eye of the Gods table. Now, the mark system and the Eye of the Gods table is one of the unique um, different ways you could flavor your Slaves to Darkness army towards one or none of the Chaos Gods. They provide different bonuses, and the fact that you can mix and match them to fit your army is a very interesting mechanic that really emphasizes the creativity that you can have in a Slaves to Darkness list. Without further ado, let's get started. To begin, let's just start with it defining what a mark is. Marks are specific keywords that you can give specific units in your army pre-game, which grant access to special god-specific buffs, as well as specific god command abilities or a spell in Tzeentch's case. Be aware, though, that these command abilities are granted to heroes only, so the hero has to issue the command ability, and they have to be targeting a unit with the same mark to make sense. And that applies to Tzeentch's spell as well. We'll go over that when we get to Tzeentch. Generally speaking, a unit can only have one mark at a time. I believe the only exception to this rule is Archeon, which has a special thing that says he has access to all the marks because he is the Herald of the Apocalypse, the Ever-Chosen himself. Moving on to the Undecided of the Chaos, we have the Mark of Chaos Undivided. The specific abilities for Chaos Undivided is all mortals and ogreoids gain the Eye of the Gods keyword, which is important to getting buffs from that table, and undivided heroes can re-roll one dice when rolling on the Eye of the Gods table. On the next slide, I will go over the various buffs and bonuses you can get from the Eye of the Gods table, and the fact that you can reroll really gives you a lot of control over the power that you can receive. The mark specific command ability is pretty okay. You get +1 to wound for melee weapons that target a hero or a monster. So if there's a really big centerpiece model that you're trying to bring down, you can use this command ability. The Eye of the Gods table is next, and we're going to be talking about how it works and what all you can get from it. Basically, at the end of each phase, for each enemy monster or hero that is destroyed by a unit with the Eye of the Gods keyword, remember that if you give a mortal or Ogryn's unit the Undivided keyword, they get Eye of the Gods, so they can roll on this. You make one roll for each hero or monster. Additionally, if you gain control of an objective that was previously controlled by an enemy, you can roll on the table. For heroes, you roll 2d6, and then for every other unit type, you roll 1d6 plus 2. Now, I'm going to briefly go over the various buffs you can get. If you'd like to pause and read through it, it is on screen now. The first two quote unquote buffs are more like debuffs. If you roll a 2 or a 3, you get some negative effects. On a 2, your hero is slain and you get a chaos spawn. Woo! That is definitely a really bad one, especially if that hero was kind of imperative to your playstyle. So having that reroll from the Undivided keyword can prevent that. 3 is just you get nothing. The gods are fickle and they give you no boons. 4 is a simple heal. If you have no wounds, then nothing happens. 4 is a spell ward, which is very powerful. It's a 2-up. 6 is +1 to charge. And then 7, ward of a 6-up. That's powerful. 8 is a +1 to rend. Very strong. 9 is a wizard's buff where the unit becomes a wizard and they can attempt to cast one spell and unbind one spell. If they are already a wizard, they can cast a second time. But as you know, or if you did not know, Khorne does not like wizards. So if a Khorne unit gets that buff, they get Slaughter's Strength instead. 10 is an Aura of Courage. That is a improved ward. Do keep in mind that most units cannot reach anything above an 8. So 9 and above is only for heroes. And lastly, if you get an 11 or 12, you can put in a Demon Prince in place of your hero if you want to sort of upgrade them. Or if you don't want a Demon Prince or you don't own a Demon Prince, it lets you pick which buff you want from the table. So a very nice ability for maxing out your roll. Moving on to the god specific buffs, we have the Mark of Khorne, which very simply makes you better in melee, as well as doing damage on the charge. The specific ability for Khorne marked units is they get +1 to melee attacks if they charge. Very straightforward, very powerful, and generally good on anything that you're wanting to beat things with. For their command ability, it's very simple. You get to roll a dice after you charge. On a 2-up, you deal D3 mortal wounds on the charge, giving you some impact hits to soften up your target. The Mark of Tzeentch is next. It provides a passive 6-up spell ignore, which is powerful, but it is kind of relying on the luck of dice, which is very Tzeentchian. Instead of a specific command ability, Tzeentch marked heroes get Warp Reality, which is a spell, has a 9-inch range and a 6-up to cast. You can pick one Tzeentch Slaves to Darkness unit and teleport them following the regular teleport rules, except they cannot move in the following movement phase. This is very, very powerful to get board control early, as well as just generally maneuver where you need to be. Keep in mind, though, you cannot move after you teleport, but if you feel lucky, you can try and make that 9-inch charge if you're trying to get into combat. Next is Nurgle. Now, Nurgle is known for being resilient and durable, so his specific ability is -1 to wound with melee weapons targeting the Nurgle marked unit. And then their command ability is an interesting one. After a unit has fought, for each enemy unit within 3 inches, you roll a dice, and on a 3-up, it's D3 mortal wounds. Um, these abilities are kind of think of them as the reverse of Khorne. So instead of an offensive buff, you get a defensive buff. And so the -1 to wound is great. It can really mess with a lot of enemy armies, and there is not very many ways to get +1 to wound in a lot of books. So it's hard to negate, unlike a -1 to hit. The command ability is fine, but really it's a little bit difficult to gauge unless you get into a lot of different units so you can get multiple rolls on the D3. Um, but overall, a good mark. Lastly, we have the mark of Slaanesh. Slaanesh being very graceful and speedy gives you a lot of movement shenanigans. You get a +1 to run and charge, and on top of this, synergizing very, very well with their specific ability, you can do a Slaanesh command ability that lets a unit run and charge. So you get your +1 to run and +1 to charge, and then you can get into combat while doing these. So very, very powerful mark. Lets you be a lot speedier than your opponent might be expecting. Before we end out the episode, I'd like to give thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys are fantastic, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of you. If you'd like to join the Patreon, please consider checking out the link in the description, as well as the link to the Discord channel. I'd love to see you there. So that was a brief overview of the different Slaves to Darkness marks, as well as the Eye of the Gods table, and what they do. This is probably one of my more favorite parts of the Slaves to Darkness book. It gives you so much flexibility and customization to really emphasize what aspect of chaos you want your Slaves to Darkness army to embody. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment, and if you'd like to see more of this type of content in the future, consider subscribing. This has been the War Grove of Woe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.